What's up, everybody? My name is Ryan Thomas. This is the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. You are tuning in via Spreaker, Facebook, Twitter, at Thomas Takeover, or YouTube at the Thomas Take Sports Podcast YouTube channel. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. Really appreciate everybody continuing to support the show, continuing to throw in some questions and some, criticism, whatever you want to call it. Hater mail, whatever you want to call it. I appreciate it because the numbers are better than they've ever been. So that is all. That is all I need. Numbers. This is a numbers game. If you're tuning in, if you're tuning in, then you are caring, which I appreciate. So that being said, just wrapped up part one of tonight's show. We're counting down to the Bills playoff game. That's obvious, but there's been a lot of interesting sports topics along the way that I've wanted to talk about, and one of those topics I just covered, the prospects of the New England meltdown featuring Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, and Robert Kraft. My take on that situation. What situation do I think has led to this boiling point? And there was this possible boiling point, and who's in the right, who's in the wrong? Tune into that. Give me your take on that. And obviously this title is a big one. For Tyrod Taylor, it is do or die. Now, let me preface my statements before I get started on the subject matter. It's no secret, I have been a harsh critic of Tyrod Taylor. Some people say too harsh. Some people say not harsh enough. Some people praise me for my criticism of Tyrod. Some people have thanked me for my criticism of Tyrod for somewhat showing them the light on certain situations with Tyrod Taylor. Some vehemently, I always mess up that word, angrily deny me of the facts. The facts are that this is the worst passing quarterback in the National Football League. He offers very little skill in terms of being a passer. He's not a passing quarterback. Very mobile athlete, very athletic quarterback, very dangerous quarterback in terms of his capabilities on a broken play and extending plays. Dangerous. That's the word that I would use. And a playmaker. A playmaker. I'd consider him a playmaker. An X factor in certain scenarios. But in terms of dropping back, reading a defense before the snap, reading a defense after the snap, and delivering the ball, he's one of the worst quarterbacks, if not the worst. Statistically, it says he is the worst. He has the worst passing stats of any quarterback, yards per game in the NFL. And if that's not his game, eventually it has to be. And the eventually it has to be is tomorrow versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. There are a lot of ways that the Bills can win this game. There are a lot of ways that the Bills can lose this game. They're even. I'd say 10-10. We'll just say 10 ways they can win, 10 ways they can lose. We'll just say 10-10. Tyrod Taylor could be one of the biggest reasons why the Bills win tomorrow. And he can be one of the biggest reasons why they lose tomorrow. That is just the reality of the current NFL. The quarterback is the most important position on both sides of the ball for both teams. Tyrod Taylor versus Blake Bortles. Now, obviously, it's not that cut and dry. Tyrod Taylor's got to go up against a heavy pass rush in Jacksonville. Blake Bortles has to go up against an opportunistic Buffalo Bills defense. And that is the matchup between the two. Those are what both defenses offer in the game plan, going up against Bortles, going up against Tyrod. But for Tyrod Taylor, this potentially, as was last week, could be his last game as a Buffalo Bill. He has to, and I repeat, has to put up 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. Regardless as to whether that's his game or not, this is the playoffs. Playoff football is different than regular season football. The game last week, you go back, you rewind, they won against the Dolphins. They made the playoffs due to the fact that Andy Dalton put through a strike to Boyd, and Boyd ran it in for 6. They beat the Ravens. They got us in. Everything that needed to happen happened, and the Bills are in the playoffs. But you want to look at the Bills game versus the Miami Dolphins. The Bills took their foot off the gas, and it was very goddamn frustrating to watch that. To watch this team somewhat stepping on the throat of Miami just to take their foot off and say, no, we'll let you live a little longer. That's literally how I saw it. We'll let you live a little longer. We'll let David Fales run it in for 6. We'll let this happen. We'll let this happen. We'll let the onside hands team is something that needs to be addressed. And usually it's something that is pretty important in a game planning process, because at any moment it could happen where a team is kicking an onside kick. We saw that in the Super Bowl with the Saints and the Colts. Teams try to catch teams off guard each and every week. That's the name of the game, catching the opponent off guard. And the hands team was terrible. So where I'm going with this basically is, kind of went a little off track there and kind of lost my train of thought just now. But there's a lot of things that can happen as to why they win this game. Tyrod Taylor is one of those reasons. Tyrod Taylor is also one of the reasons why they could lose. Really wish I didn't lose my train of thought. But I'm back to it now. Tyrod Taylor has to lead an offense with or without. I think it's going to be with LaShawn McCoy. If it's with LaShawn McCoy, LaShawn is going to be at less than 100%. I think he's going to be at 70%, 60%, somewhere 60 to 70% in that range. And Tyrod has to lead this offense like a true franchise quarterback. If he puts out an effort that is beyond what I had seen, what I had foreseen, it could be that could be what determines his future here. If I see what I'm accustomed to seeing, errant passes at the feet, over the head, to the sideline, creating dead plays. What I mean by that is rolling out of the pocket, seeing a lane to run, not running, hesitating, and then running for literally a 1 or 2 yard gain, getting back to the line of scrimmage just to save face on the play. Not throwing the ball over the middle of the field, even to receivers that are wide open. The reluctance to throw the ball. If I see that tomorrow, it will be a huge fat L for the Buffalo Bills. And I very well could see that tomorrow. It's something that I've seen on tons of occasions from Tyrod Taylor. The Bills have to have a passing attack tomorrow. It's going to be very, very tough for them to do that, knowing that Jacksonville has the secondary that it has one of the best rising up-and-coming corners in this league in Jalen Ramsey. So it's going to be very tough for them to do that. But regardless of the fact, Tyrod Taylor has to button up his chin strap, snap it in, bite down on his mouthpiece, and say, I am going to lead this team to victory today. I am going to be one of the main reasons why we win this game. I want to see Tyrod in space. I want to see Tyrod rolling out. I want to see Tyrod surveying the field in space, looking to run or pass. That is what he is good at. I want to see Tyrod on broken plays, make big plays. That's what he is known to do. If we don't see that, if we see the opposite, if we see him reluctant to throw the ball over the middle, if we see him take sacks, hold on to the ball too long, or create dead plays, it will be a loss for the Bills, and it will be the last game that he's played for the Buffalo Bills, because we saw this far too often during the regular season. It was why he was benched. And so many fans had so many things to say as to why he was benched, why he shouldn't have been benched, even throwing the race card at Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane and Terry Pagula, which I thought was really, really, utterly ridiculous. And I will come right out and say, anyone that threw that card out there, that's a joke of a stance. It really is. They let this guy be the starter for 3 years. They have plenty of African-American football players on their team. Race is not something that is looked at in this organization. I could tell you that point blank. So that aside, this is a real situation here. This could be do or die for Tyrod, and I believe it is do or die for Tyrod. He either goes out, plays his ass off, they win this game, or he goes out and doesn't play up to his potential, they lose. That's his lasting impression on the season. If this is your last game of the season, make it count. Make it count. Even in a win or a loss, even in victory or defeat, go out there and show me something. Show me that you're the guy for this year. You were supposed to be the guy, and next year you're supposed to be the guy. Make me as a coach, as a GM, believe that maybe it's not in our best interest to use a first-round pick on a quarterback. Does one game necessarily prove that? To me, no. But I think the Bills are kind of looking for a bit of a reason to keep Tyrod so that the door is cracked a little bit open. To me, if it were my call, he probably wouldn't come back. But the door is always open for a player to take a lesser deal, which he has done once before, and stay for one more season. Meanwhile, the Bills draft his backup, to potentially replace him. And that's what happens in 2019. Realistically, they have what it takes to win now, being that they made the playoffs. But the question is, will it show tomorrow versus Jacksonville? We will find out. But this is do or die for this man. And regardless of the criticism that I've had, there have been moments where he looks just downright awful. Then there are moments where he looks so-so. And there are moments where he plays pretty well. Not great, but pretty well. Last week was one of those games, but I thought they should have beat Miami by a heck of a lot more than 5 points or 6 points. 22-16 was the final score. I thought it should have been much more than that. In the majority of the games, the Bills win, and Tyrod plays so-so, plays pretty well. I thought that they should have won by much more than what they did. And realistically, they would if they had a guy that could sling the ball around. But they just don't have that guy. Well, they go out and get that guy anyway. Whether it's a good performance or not, I think they should get a significant upgrade in terms of a passer, whether that's via the draft and the guy sits a year, or whether that's a veteran and he comes right in, or whether that's a top quarterback, trade up and get one. There's a lot of options that they have at their disposal with the currency that they have, with the capital that they have. But regardless, it is do or die for Tyrod Taylor. And the only people that are not willing to admit that are the people that think that this guy is far better than what he actually is. I'm Ryan Thomas. It was the Thomas Take. Take care, everybody.